Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CDL podcast channel. In this episode today, you all know what we're going to be talking about. Rostermania has really officially kicked off now. It's the day that people can sign their contracts. Kind of expected as of now, as we just hit record and as I'm talking, nobody has officially said that they are signing anywhere. That's kind of expected because the off season is about 5 months long, still going into December. So not expecting people to announce right away, but maybe some of our bigger teams, bigger brands like a Faze, like an OpTic, could be announcing soon. But we definitely have some rumors to discuss. Some rumored teams have really been announced now. Now that things are open, so we're going to discuss all those. If you guys enjoy, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, if you're on the audio platforms, drop a follow, drop a 5-star review. We appreciate all the support. We're already pretty close to that 1,100 subscriber mark because you guys have been crushing the support, so we really appreciate it. We're officially partnered on YouTube now after crossing that 1,000 sub mark, so the support has been nuts, and we really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's jump into this one and talk Rostermania. Brock, how you doing?
Oh, fine Monday today. It did not work today, which, love it. Some good old Rostermania stuff happening. And before we start, I like to say, because I don't think I was on the last one when you talked about Octane at all.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so Octane, congratulations on a legendary career, the human turret, first of all. And, I watched that video you put out, it's like, ever since he won champs, he said he has nothing left to prove. Not gonna just chill with his family, his fiance, have family life. See his family a lot more, he said. So that's what I want to say to that.
Yeah, just probably a lot more easy lifestyle. The content lifestyle probably a lot easier than competing. And there were some people commenting on that little mini pod saying like, "Oh, he had so many years left. What a mistake to retire." And it's like you're kind of missing the point of the retirement if you're saying that. Because I mean, everybody, and he even said in his retirement video, he knew he had multiple years left. I mean, you could make an argument he was the best main AR in the league this year. So he knew he had many years left he could have played, but that's not the issue. If you were saying that he made a mistake, then you were kind of missing the entire point of the retirement. And the video, because obviously everybody knows that he had multiple years left to play if he wanted to, but he didn't want to, so he really didn't have multiple years left. And he's made plenty of money, like you said. He's accomplished basically everything you can in a career. MVPs, a world championship, multiple event wins. I think he finishes with like 10 event wins, so he accomplished a lot in his career, and him having the ability was not the issue there. That was not the reason he retired, was because of ability.
Yeah, a lot of hours being put in for a COD pro, like 10 plus.
And he just got engaged. Maybe looking to move on. Maybe, I mean, who knows? But could be looking to start a family soon. That usually comes with an engagement and a marriage. So maybe he's looking to do that soon. And he just wants to have a little more time in his life. So whenever somebody makes a personal decision like that, you can't really blame them because they're doing what's best for them.
Yep. Congrats to Octane.
I kind of forgot about that though. Geez, there's been so much happening. It just kind of got brushed under the rug in my mind.
Yep.
Big news today, Brock, though. We got to kick it off with them. The OpTic roster was, rumored, obviously not officially confirmed. Things could change, but the roster talk now is that OpTic is likely to get Drazah and Pred. And who knows, while we're talking here, we might see an update from OpTic or something. They kind of teased it earlier, saying that it could be coming on the horizon with that weird Shotzzy TikTok. But they're apparently likely to get Drazah and Pred, leaving the roster with Dashy on the main, Drazah on a flex, and then Shotzzy and Pred as the sub duo. Thoughts on this roster? It was definitely one of the ones that we thought could be coming with the Drazah rumors. At first, it was Drazah Envoy. Then maybe we thought Sib and Pred. We all kind of really thought Pred was going to be here, maybe with either Sib or Drazah, maybe even Envoy. They were going to have somebody do a flex. We didn't really know, but sounds like it's going to be Drazah and Pred joining Dashy and Shotzzy.
Yeah. Personally, I think Drazah fits the mold better than Sib would, because Drazah would do all the dirty work for the team, and he's a lot of passion. S&D player.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think you couldn't go wrong with Sib either. I think Dashy, Sib, Shotzzy, Pred, just pure talent wise, even if they weren't playing the game completely correctly and had somebody like quote unquote doing the dirty work, like they would find a lot of wins because that team is just insanely talented. And when we talk Faze. You know, we'll talk about that a little bit and what that team's going to look like because they're kind of going to be in that boat of just pure talent.
Mhm.
You know, going the pure talent route and just having the best team by far talent wise is never a terrible route because you're going to find a lot of wins that way. But yeah, I agree. I think Drazah fills a role at the flex that they need maybe a little bit more than Sib. And I think an underrated aspect is maybe Drazah's comms. I feel like Drazah might be a little more vocal. Sib's always known as a little bit of a more quiet player in game and really out of game. He's more of a reserve, quiet dude, it seems like. So maybe Drazah brings a little bit more in the comms department. Like you said, he is more of a dirty work player, where Sib is more of the flashy slayer. Drazah can slay too, but I think the big thing for me also is Drazah to me is a clearly better S&D player than Sib.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
So I think that puts this team in a position where their S&D could be insane because we know Shotzzy. Sometimes does he take some pretty risky plays? Yes, he does, but they also a lot of times result in big plays that end up being first bloods turned into two pieces and they win you rounds. Pred same way, a lot of first bloods, a lot of big games in search. He's one of the best search players this year. Drazah, another guy, a lot of big games in search, and we know Dashy can bring out the boomstick and is a good search and destroy player. So that's what I like about this team is I think the S&D has a lot of potential, and in my opinion, with a team with this much talent and those four players, you're just going to find respawn wins.
Yeah.
Kind of how it works.
Yeah. More talent, other teams likely leads to respawn wins.
Yeah, like even if you're not playing the best, you're just going to find some most likely.
Yeah. I don't know. A lot of people really don't like Drazah that much, but I find him. I like him.
Yeah, I like him too. I think sometimes I wish he would just like fully embrace it. Sometimes he does the trash talking and then he'll go at it with people on the timeline. I wish he would just fully embrace that villain role. The quote unquote villain role. I guess if you're an OpTic fan, he was like a villain to you or a fan of any team apart from LA Thieves. He kind of took on a villain role to you. But that is something interesting if he does join OpTic because we haven't seen a player like that join the roster since like a Crim. Because people forget because they loved Crim so much when he was on OpTic, but like pre-OpTic, Crim had a massive rivalry with like Nadeshot and Scump and the Complexity team against OpTic. Like they were the villains in OpTic fans' eyes. You kind of forget about that, but since Crim joined, honestly, like the rosters after, you had like TJ coming over and Dashy, like neither of them were villains. And Black Ops 4, then an MW, like if you consider the Huntsman roster, like Arcitys wasn't really viewed as a villain, or Pristini or Gunless, any of those guys. Even onto the newer rosters with like an Illy and a Shotzzy coming on, they weren't ever really viewed as villains. So like this is the first time you had like a quote unquote villain or somebody a lot of the community tends to hate come over to OpTic since Crim.
Yeah, for sure.
I wonder how the fans will take that. It feels like a situation where they're going to embrace him and love him because it tends to be what the Green Wall does. But the second Drazah has a bad map, I think they're going to turn a lot quicker. I think they're going to turn a lot quicker than they do on other players. And guess what? He's going to have a bad map because every player has a bad map here and there. So
yeah,
he's going to have a bad map, and I'm interested to see how the fans react when Drazah does have a bad map. Because guess what? He's going to have one, and it's probably going to happen pretty quickly because every player has bad maps.
Especially if they like 3 or just Fry, you're going to not have a not so great map.
And that could end up happening to him a lot on this team. I mean, when you have Shotzzy, Pred, and Dashy on your team, somebody can't put up the 1.2. And Drazah's going to be doing a lot of dirty work. Drazah might be in like 0.9 territory this year where he's getting to 0.95, but doing a lot of the dirty work. And, just the kills aren't there for him because Shotzzy and Pred and Dashy are picking up all of them. And I'm interested to see how the fans react. It'll be like JCap said, it'll be a good litmus test of intelligence of a lot of Call of Duty fans when we're watching Drazah do all the dirty work this year. But overall, I like the roster. Let's talk about what you think like floor and ceiling is for this team. I feel like I know where you and everybody will go with the ceiling, but let's start with floor. What do you think this team's floor is? What is like the worst you can see them doing?
Oh, the worst I could see this team. I could I would say like maybe like a top 6, have a bad weekend.
Are you talking like top 6 at a tournament or like top 6 in the overall standings next year? Or how about
top 6 at like a tournament?
Okay. I was going to say, how about like your I don't know. I don't want to say regular season standings because that's also not what I'm trying to capture. But I don't know. I feel like randomly anybody could have a top 12 at a tournament. So like you saying top 6 doesn't mean you can't see them getting like a top 8 or a top 12 on like a really bad weekend because anybody can. To just like you're saying on average, you think they're always going to be in the top 6 teams for sure.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
I want to say I think that's not a bad pick because I do think maybe there's a world where the team cohesion just doesn't work because there's just too many guys that want to run around and get kills. So
Hmm.
I do think that's a possibility. However, I'm going to say I think the floor is. I guess it's not a placing, doesn't so it doesn't make as much sense. I was going to say maybe like a top 4. Like I just can't see them getting worse than top 4 in the regular season standings. And I
Yeah.
think like their average placing will be 4th because I think this is a team that will like win an event. Like let's say there's 5 majors. I think this is a team that will win an event, get a second. I think they'll mix a 6th in there. I think they
Hmm.
probably get a 4th in there, and maybe a 3rd. I don't know. I see them maybe getting like a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 6th. Like I see all those placements happening potentially. Um, I don't know. I'll say I think that the floor is like a top 4 because I do really think this team will struggle to find. I don't know. I think they'll struggle to find. I don't. Not struggle's not the right word. I think that they'll have a hard time not placing top 6 just with the pure talent and with the way that it seems like the CDL is going to be structured next year, where we're hearing that there's going to be some very bad rosters. It's going to be very
Yeah.
top heavy.
Hmm.
I just can't see this team losing to teams that are a lot less talented than them very often.
Yeah. So basically, like this team should make like every Sunday.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I'm thinking because I for some reason I'm still in champs mode where Sunday's only the top 2 teams, but I guess our Sundays now are top 3 teams. Yeah, so this team should be making every Sunday. Yeah, basically that's kind of what I think. Like the expectations for this team 100% will be to make every Sunday. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a team of Pred, who's an MVP candidate, Shotzzy, who's won an MVP, Dashy, who's finished as runner up to MVP and been in the running multiple times, and Drazah, who's a world champion and a very good player in his own right.
Yeah.
So yeah, this team on paper, yes, this team if they don't make every Sunday, that would be a disappointment because this team is a superstar
Hmm.
loaded team.
The famous might give them a lot of pressure though, so we'll see
Yeah,
how they fold or above over it.
I think we both would agree on ceiling in this team. The ceiling on this team would be multiple championships, a world championship. That would be the ceiling. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see this team. I'm not necessarily saying like, oh my god, they're going to win multiple championships or going to win the world championship next year, but that would definitely be the ceiling. This team definitely has the capability to do something like a New York type run this year.
Hmm.
A couple events in a ring is certainly what this team could achieve. Are you concerned at all about the vocal leadership in game? There's not like a clear IGL, but are you concerned about that, or is that not something that worries you that much with this group of players?
Um, Maybe a little bit, but I feel like they'll figure it out.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's IGL. I think can somewhat be overrated in the COD community, but at the same time, it also does have its place.
Hmm.
If you just have 4 players that are terrible communicators and that don't speak a lot in game, like it's definitely going to hurt you. But also, I don't think you need like the extreme, like this guy's calming everything, calling everything. I don't think you need that. I think somewhere in between can work. And from what we hear, it seems like Shotzzy can have pretty good comms in game. It seems like Dashy has also improved his comms. I think Drazah has pretty good comms. And when we listen with Pred, it seems like he's talking a decent amount in those Seattle listenings. So I feel like it's 4 players that talk enough and can shot call enough that I feel like a team collaboration of
Yeah.
comms will work for this team. They don't have like a clear IGL, but I feel like the comms won't be too bad in this team. Maybe early on they'll need to figure out and iron out how that's going to work because a guy like Drazah is used to having Octane for the
Yeah.
last couple of years. Pred's used to having a guy like Accuracy. So maybe they can take pieces of what those guys taught them and bring it here, and that would really help the team because obviously Dashy and Shotzzy didn't necessarily have like a clear IGL the last few years. Dashy would have last had it with like a formal,
Yeah.
and
Of
Shotzzy
war.
would have last had it with probably like a Crim, a Clay.
Hmm. Yeah, because Scump's really wasn't really IGL like that.
No. But Pred and Drazah maybe can bring something from Octane and Accuracy, 2 of our better vocal leaders. And I think this team will be fine with that.
Yeah. But I guess I don't think they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Last thing on OpTic, not really as much on OpTic. You wrote it down here to mention it. Hecz on the timeline today said that Drazah is a generational talent. I have a pretty strong opinion on this. It's kind of like my take on sports media as a whole, esports media, sports media, whatever you want to call it. People just throw around words that like either they don't know the meaning of or just like are misusing like crazy in sports media. Like we have all these people calling people the GOAT that are just like an average player because they make a good play, or like you
Hmm.
have Heggy calling Drazah a generational talent. It's like we're misusing the word generational talent or the phrase generational talent. Like that literally means a once in a generation player, a guy that comes around every 20 to 30 years. Like
Yeah.
the clear best player, like when you watch him in football or basketball or Call of Duty, whatever it is, like that guy jumps off the screen. It's like, that is like the best player I've seen in a long time. He's different. Like, is Drazah a great player? Sure. Will he go down as, one of the better players of all time? Yeah, he does have a ring and he's on a good roster now, so he's a chance, but he is by no means a generational talent because, I mean, he's not even the best flex in the league currently if you consider a guy like Scrap.
Yeah.
Scrap is a guy that you can consider maybe a generational talent. Like he's doing unreal stuff. Abezy, we've never seen anybody play an entry role like that, and we might not see it again for a long time. Like he was something different when he came on the scene. Simp when he came on the
Hmm.
scene in Black Ops 4. Scump back in the day. Crim back in the day. Those guys are generational talents that once in a so long. Like Draws is a good player, but generational talent. Like I agree 100% with Aches. That is like a special term that you have to say for special players. Draws is great, but
He's
not
not
that level.
generational.
No, I mean, these are like in terms of sports, like generational is like LeBron, Michael Jordan, like these special players that truly come around once in a generation. That's what it means.
Yeah. Maybe Parasite Haggy made for that, but
Yeah.
he did bring him up. He said so. Can't blame him for that with the
Yeah.
gas.
And it's like, yeah, was Hagee right about Drazah being a great player early on? Absolutely. He said it for early on. He was a great player. Sure. Drazah is a great player, but yeah, it's just we got to define what we mean by these terms. Like
Hmm.
generational talent, it's in the name. Once in a generation. Is Drazah once in a generation? I don't know about that.
Yeah. Hey, who knows? Could win the 3 in a row. Prove us wrong.
Yeah, win 5 rings or something and prove us wrong. But yeah,
Then we'll
that
call
was
him
that
that.
was an interesting take on the timeline. We
Yeah.
even had Kyle jumping in on the debate. First odd talk we've seen from Kyle in a while.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Faze next because they kind of have a domino effect from this move.
Yeah.
Um, so Faze, obviously, there was the rumor from last week or a few days ago or whatever that said that Faze top target was Drazah potentially. Obviously, if Drazah is going to OpTic, let's operate under the idea that Drazah is on OpTic. So
Yep.
Drazah's on OpTic. Faze can no longer pick him up. They obviously dropped Slasher. We thought maybe Octane was an option for them. He retired. So this hasn't really been like put on the timeline or anything, or as like an official rumor from any of the usual leakers. But we're led to believe that likely Sib would be the play here, especially because Envoy was maybe another rumor to Faze, and it sounds like he said on Ultra. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Said Insight might have been a potential target for Faze. Seems like he's gonna stay on Ultra, so that's out of the question. Faze picking up Sib seems like a likely option here. He has history with the org. He was a substitute in Cold War when they won the World Championship. Knows the players, fits the role they want because they can maybe slide Cellium to more of a main AR and let Sib play a little faster.
Yeah.
I mean, mechanical skill, talent wise, could potentially be the most talented roster we've ever seen on paper.
Hmm. Definitely.
Thoughts on that? Is there anybody else you think maybe Faze could be looking at? Seems like Sib is, what in my mind would be the favorite to join this roster based on the other moves.
Yeah.
And it was announced that he's not returning to Seattle today.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say Sib, but if they're looking to put Cellium to the main, because the last 2 main Rs really like Arcitys and Flash haven't worked out the best in recent games for them. Maybe Ghosty.
Yeah. And Ghosty is baiting on the timeline. He's playing Outlast with Simp currently.
Mm-hmm.
He's baiting. Yeah, I personally think Ghosty would be a great fit for this team because he can run a true flex and can even like heavily run a sub if needed. And obviously his comms are great, so he brings that. He certainly brings better comms than Sib does, no question about that. I think Sib maybe a little bit more mechanically skilled, but Ghosty's definitely not anything to shrug at. He's definitely very, very good mechanically.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they know him well enough or if they're willing to take that shot.
Yeah, since they do know Sib a lot more.
Yeah, but it's definitely a good shout, and it's definitely a possibility. And Ghosty, we'll talk about that too. But Ghosty did turn down an offer from Boston, which tells me that he has other offers he likes better on the table because Boston isn't the best offer to get, but it's also not the worst. That's for sure. I mean, they do have some talent there with Cramps, Newbie Beans. Like they've got some decent players there.
Yeah.
So Boston's not the worst offer to get. So if he's turning that down, that tells me he's got offers from other teams. I doubt he has a Faze offer yet, an official offer, because I think he would have signed that in a heartbeat if he did.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think maybe he has an LAT offer on the table.
He's probably maybe just waiting to see what their team would look like.
Yeah, so here's what my thought process is. I could be completely wrong. This isn't intel. This isn't something I know. But from the rosters, we saw somebody from the rotation, I believe. Was it Ant? I can't remember who it was, but somebody from the rotation, I believe we saw post rumored rosters, and he thought, LAT could look like Ghosty, Cammy, Hook, and Kenny. Now, what we're hearing is apparently Illy, Awakening, and Hook are a team of 3. So maybe that roster isn't exactly accurate, but maybe like Ghosty and Kenny are a team of 2 on Thieves right now, or he has an offer to join like Kenny and a couple others. Maybe Kenny and Hook on Thieves, something like that. So maybe he has that, but he's trying to leverage it to maybe get a Faze offer or something. It's kind of my thought, but
yeah,
I still believe Sib would be the favorite for Faze.
Yeah, if they're going the route of Cellium to the main. If not, then maybe like a Clay.
Yeah, to me, I feel like they are going to go Cellium. Cellium to the main, but
yeah,
I don't know. So who do you prefer of those? Or like of all the options that are on the table, like we're taking Drazah, we're taking Envoy, we're taking Insight, these people that we heard. Who's your favorite? Is it Ghosty? Is it Sib? Is it someone else that you'd like to see?
Faze.
Yeah, for Faze.
Personally, I would have loved to see Drazah go to Faze.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved that too. Take him out though, since we're technically saying he's on OpTic for this argument.
The next up would be Sib, and then Ghosty for me.
You'd like Sib over Ghosty?
Yeah.
See, I'm the other way around. I would actually think if I was Faze, I'd prefer Ghosty. Something about like
just bring a lot more comms.
Well, and I don't like the issue with Faze isn't talent. Like Slasher was plenty good for them, and he had good comms and everything. I think the issue was just pacing it. Slasher a little bit slower, Cellium a little bit slower. I think Ghosty could really speed it up because he at times was running a submachine gun full time in challengers. I think he can really speed it up and play a fast AR and go out and slay and bring a lot of comms and help Simp Abezy just focus on running it down. I think he would pick up the pace a little bit where Cellium was slow, Slasher was slow, and they were kind of left on an island. I think Ghosty would pick up the pace a little bit with them, and I think Sib would do the same thing, but Ghosty would do it with the comms. I mean,
yeah,
my opinion, they can't go wrong with either. I think whatever they do, they'll still finish first in the standings next year in the regular season when it's all said and done. But yeah, I think Sib is most likely there, and I don't think Faze can go wrong because it's not like they're going to have a lack of people that want to join the roster.
Yeah. So we'll see what they hold.
Yeah, we'll see. Still waiting on like official rumors for them because we haven't really heard much since like the the Insight rumors, the Drazah rumors, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But speaking of Sib, Surge, squad wiped. This was like weird to me that they were tweeting like we're parting ways with them because weren't they all unrestricted free agents anyways?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and they obviously were because there's no way that they would have turned down the options on Sib and Pred if they were. So like that was kind of weird that we've parted ways. Like it was like they were dropping them, but I guess maybe it was an announcement that they're not picking up their or not re-signing them. Maybe, and it included Sam Phoenix, the coach, as well as our goat Brock Revin, as the GM. He was also wiped away from the squad there, but
full rebuild mode for Seattle or Vancouver.
Yeah, I guess I thought maybe they would keep Accuracy or Mac because since they're losing Civ and Pred, it might not be a desirable spot. Maybe they're not spending a lot of money, don't have a lot of options. I thought maybe they'd keep one of the two to build around just because they're familiar, but doesn't seem like they're going to do that. Do you think Civ and Pred are obviously going to find a home? Do you think Mac and Accuracy are going to find starting jobs somewhere?
Mm, I feel like they could. Maybe on the bottom lower teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be like a thing where Accuracy looks for a couple teams, maybe can't find one, and he's going to be left with having to be on like a London or a Vegas or one of those teams if he wants to play, just because I just don't feel like people have a great view of him in their head.
Mm-hmm.
I think his stock is somewhat low right now, so I think it's going to be tough for him. I could see Mac kind of the same way. Not going to be able to get on a top team, but I think there's a world where Mac gets a shot on a lower tier team. I don't think they're both guarantees, but I also don't think they're guarantees to be on a bench either or not on a roster.
Yeah, so definitely gonna be basically how they view him, or if people want to play with them.
Yeah, and for Seattle, who knows where they go? Maybe this is a spot where that team of three could land. That rumor team of three with Illy Awakening and Hook.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a spot where they land here because Seattle are probably viewed as, I think Seattle are maybe willing to pay a little bit, and they're viewed as probably a pretty decent organization since they've had a couple good years, the last couple of years since those rough few years to start the CDL off. Maybe that's the spot where those guys go, but we've just heard nothing about rumors, and we don't even know who their GM or their coach is. So like, you can't associate players that have been with those guys in the past.
Yeah,
because they dropped everyone, and maybe their move to Vancouver influences them. Who knows? So interested to see where they go, but we just don't have much intel on them, other than they dropped their entire org, basically.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Starting from the bottom, see what they can get.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with them, though. Then we've got Envoy set to join the Toronto Ultra. So this is this is the most interesting move of the day to me because OpTic, we kind of knew roughly it was going to be Pred and either probably Sib or Drazah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Envoy if something crazy happened. Faze, if we're talking about that rumor, we kind of knew it was going to be somebody like a Sib if Drazah didn't move on. This one is like the most interesting to me because we assumed Faze was going to be a super team because they keep that trio. They're going to get a good player. We assumed OpTic was probably going to build a super team because we knew they were picking up Pred. We kind of assumed New York was going to stick with their roster. I mean, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Maybe they're not.
We'll see.
We assume New York's going to stick and they're going to be a very good team. Before, Octave retired, we thought the rumor was, these were still going to be a super team. We're going to be very good, but we thought Toronto was going to fall off the face of the earth because it sounded like they were keeping Scrappy and throwing 3 minimum contracts around him.
Mm-hmm.
But now apparently they might be keeping Insight and Kleenex and having Envoy join them. And this team just finished second at Champs. And Envoy is a clear upgrade over Hixie. Envoy is basically Hixie, but
better. Yeah.
He's basically just like Hixie, but a more mechanically skilled player.
Mm-hmm.
Does all the dirty work, has fantastic comms, great in S&D, better in S&D than Hixie was by far. And also, like we said, more Gunny has been in the MVP conversation before, has finished as a finalist in that. An excellent player. And if that's actually the roster, Insight, Kleenex, Envoy, and Scrappy, that is a team that has, they have multiple event win potential, ring potential. This is a potential top 3 team in my eyes.
Yeah, definitely. This could be a scary team.
I mean, in my eyes, going forward, let's say New York. I mean, the Priest thing's weird. We'll talk about that, but let's say they stick, which they're going to, and then OpTic has the roster that's rumored. Really, whoever Faze picks up, Sib or Ghosty or whoever, they're going to be really good. I mean, a top 4 of Ultra, OpTic, Faze, and NYSL in whatever order they fall in is a very entertaining top 4. And who knows, Thieves could have a pretty good roster as well, and maybe a couple other teams, Boston, Minnesota, whoever. But a Toronto, New York, Faze, and OpTic top 4, if these rosters fall into place like they're rumored, could be very entertaining.
Yeah, definitely. Some good games if those rosters all come to fruition.
Yeah, because I truly think that this roster with Envoy over Hixie could legitimately be a top team. Like they could have best team in the game potential at their right moments because they're a teamwork oriented team that also, they basically just keep their teamwork likely with those 3 players, and I feel like Envoy is a player that can really slot in, and he's pretty easy going, it seems like, and he can really slot in with anyone, and he's a talent upgrade. So they basically keep their teamwork potentially. Although I know Scrappy and Hixie do have a lot of chem, but I don't think that'll be an issue with Envoy. So they could potentially keep their teamwork but upgrade on talent. This is a very, very, very good move for Ultra if it's just an Envoy in for Hixie move in my eyes.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And Envoy was was he like the number like top 5 on the 30 BAM kill leaders for the season?
Yeah, something like he had a lot of crazy high engagement games. Yeah.
Yeah. So
he was up there, and I feel like he could help bring some consistency to CleanX's game as well, as weird as that sounds, because like Hixie, don't get me wrong, he did a lot of the dirty work. He clearly did a lot of good things for that team, or they wouldn't have won the second he got plugged in, got a second at champs, constantly been top 4. That they wouldn't have done that. Hixie clearly did a lot for that team, but I think with Envoy bringing a little bit more consistent performances alongside CleanX, it could raise CleanX's game as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, even just from any of you playing COD, like if you're just playing ranked play, even if you're solo queuing, if your teammates are playing really well, it's easier for you to play well. If your teammates are playing poorly, it's harder for you to play well. It's just a basic principle of COD. If everybody around you is getting fried, it's hard for you to fry. But if everybody around you is frying, it's easy for you to fry because the map's a lot more open. You can be a lot more free. You can hit lanes. You can hit routes.
Yep.
I think the Envoy CleanX duo could be scary. This could be a very good S&D team as well.
Yeah, for real. Jeez.
And a team with some great comms.
Excited to see.
Yeah. Then we go to let's go to Boston since we're talking about Envoy, and we already talked about Ghosty. Apparently, they both turned down offers from Boston. This is also interesting because they did keep Kremp and Beans on contracts, and we believe they have the rights to Snoopy. Or I believe Snoopy would be getting, some looks from other orgs potentially. So this is very interesting because that means that if they kept those 3 players on and offered these 2, that means that maybe they're not fully sold on starting all 3 of those players they kept because they offered these 2. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say they didn't offer Ghosty and Envoy bench spots.
Yeah.
So that means those 2 were likely starting. That means that one of the sub players that they kept, I would probably guess Kremp. And then he did tweet about like he has a lot of people to prove wrong or something this year. So maybe he knows that they offered these guys to take his spot because I believe they probably would have the roster as like a Beans, Ghosty, Envoy, Snoopy would be my thoughts of what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Beans on the main, Ghosty on the flex, then have Envoy and Snoopy on their subs is probably what I'm guessing they attempted to do, which doesn't sound like a bad roster, but interesting that people are turning down Boston. Maybe they don't view those Boston players as highly as we do, but also could likely be because that offer from Toronto that Envoy got is much better than this one. And Ghosty probably thinks he can't win with that roster if Envoy doesn't join. So it's probably a domino effect, and he likes his chances to get on like a Thieves or a different roster, maybe.
Yeah, Ghosty likely has probably a better offer, potentially.
Yeah, I don't think it's as like crazy or like as wild as people are making it sound. Like a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, nobody wants to join Boston." I think it's just a case of Envoy had a fantastic offer that was just better than what Boston could do with the team, especially. And I think Ghosty maybe, we don't know for sure, but I believe Ghosty probably has a better offer or an offer he likes more on the table. So it's just they're also offering 2 of the top free agents. You got to remember that. It's not like some mid free agent that might not even get on a team is turning them down. These are 2 of the top free agents.
Yeah. So let's see if they offered them, see if they would join. If not, oh well.
Yeah. You have a note here. You want to put Doug on the main roster?
Yep. Put Doug on it.
Yeah, that would you know what, for pure entertainment purposes, yes, please put Doug on the roster.
Doug's basically put all those people in challengers.
Yeah, he does have chemistry and experience with all of them. I mean, if they just plug him in with the 3 they kept, that's just their challengers roster basically with Beans, Snoopy, and Kremp. He played with them all for some period of time.
Yeah, I think if Doug breaks the pull-up record, they should put him in.
Sure, with his hands the way they are, they should make him try out with his beat up hands.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting stuff happening in the Boston camp. The top free agents are turning them down for deals. If they're still looking to upgrade their subs, I know a guy who used to play for them that, in my opinion, is better than Kremp. Capsidal. I mean,
Cap.
I'll keep pounding the drum for Capsidal because I'll say it all offseason. I think he is the most underrated free agent. Obviously, we know a lot of the free agents that people are coveting. I think a guy like Capsidal is a potential top 10 sub. I mean, there are 24 subs in the league technically at all times. You're saying every team has 2 starting subs. I think Capsidal is a potential top 10 sub. I'm not saying he is a top 10 sub. I think his ceiling is a top 10, maybe even like top 8 sub in the entire game. I think that's where his ceiling could be if he's on the right team. And I think he's being extremely undervalued. And I'm going to be a fan of whatever team decides to make a move and pick him up. And, if Boston's looking to pick up a sub or any of these teams looking to pick up a sub, Seattle, you squad wiped. Minnesota, you squad wiped. Pick this guy Capsidal up. I think he's an incredible player. Vegas. I just think, the Boston team he had was, Zinni, TJ, Nero. Like, they were a good team, but they were, just bound to be mid. And then his team last year on Florida, I mean, hell, by the end of the year, they were actually looking pretty darn good at that last event.
He was frying too.
Capsidal was their best player at the event. Yeah, he was frying. I love Capsidal as a player. I love his aggression. He seems like a cool kid too. So somebody pick up Capsidal. Boston, maybe you should do it.
We'll see.
Yeah. Other than that, the last real thing I've kind of been refreshing Twitter on the side just to make sure there's no news dropping. I haven't really seen anything. Something else we saw is a Priesta contract issue. Kind of a weird thing.
It is a little weird.
Not what you want to see out of the defending world champs.
It is not. They need renegotiate, get the right, bring them back because they just won champs.
Yeah, it's just weird. Like I don't know. It sounds like they're maybe lowballing him.
That's what it sounded like from some of the reports. Which is I don't see why would you do that.
Yeah, it's probably because maybe Hydra's making an absolute bag. And I guess, Kismet had to restructure it. I'm sure they paid Kismet pretty handsomely considering he won an MVP at stage 1 and of champs. So won 2 MVPs this year. I'm sure they're paying him pretty handsomely. Sure, Sky's got a decent contract. And from what we heard, like a lot of these CDL player contracts are like they like double in money or they definitely go up a lot in money in the second year. And they probably want to pick up the option of all these guys because they don't want to, risk even having the chance to lose them. So they're probably paying a lot of money for the roster. Thought they could get Priesta for cheap, but that's not the way you want to start the offseason after a world championship is ruin the vibes by lowballing one of your players and making it seem like you don't value him as much as you should. So maybe something to watch here if things, linger on, because I will say Priesta has a lot of history with the boys on Faze and they're looking for a flex. So one thing I'll say.
That is very true. Very, very, very true. So we'll see
if you're Priesta and there's one thing that could ever pull you away from defending your title with the team that he seems to vibe with, they seem to love each other, that New York Subliners team, if there's one thing that could pull you away from that roster, what would it be?
Good old Atlanta Faze.
Yeah, to me it would be a lot of money from a good org that gives you a chance to further your career. Faze could potentially do that. I mean, if he's just not getting the offer at all he wants, and he just really thinks he just could get more money somewhere else, and Faze offers him double the little contract that New York maybe is offering him, it's hard to turn down because it is still Faze, even though you want to defend your world championship. That's one reason you could really justify leaving is I get to play with Simp, Abezy, and Cell, and on a good org like Faze, or obviously OpTic is, he's not going to get an OpTic offer, but they would always be a team that you'd leave any team for because you can set yourself up for life with a content career after.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, so I'm very interested by that. Other than that, though, it's going to be a slightly shorter episode because we really haven't had any official teams during this week. You might see some mini episodes solo, and maybe Brock will join if he has time, but it might be just solo episodes from me if official rosters are announced and we want to just get out something to talk about it shortly and thoughts on it and stuff. Otherwise, that's all we've got for today, unless you got anything else you want to talk about, Brock.
No, I don't see any more news on the timeline as of right now. There'll probably something after we stop recording like usual.
Yeah, well, I'll probably hit stop recording. I'll be processing the audio file, putting the podcast up. It'll be uploading, and then like the OpTic roster will officially drop, and somehow Thieves will drop their roster, and then randomly Vegas will decide to sign their roster earlier this year, and they'll all just drop tonight after. I thought OpTic was going to drop some point during the day today because of the whole teaser with Shotzi. I thought that meant like in a couple hours they drop, but maybe they're waiting for something, or they haven't officially signed the contracts, or they're really deciding. But I don't think you drop a teaser video without the actual like official roster in mind.
Yeah, Shotzi was streaming, so you could ask him a question. He might like leak you the roster.
Yeah, you could just probably type in chat, "Hey, is your roster you Dashy, Drazah, and Pred?" And he might just say, "Oh yeah."
He might.
He tends to do that.
Yeah. Other than that, no, I got nothing else really.
Yeah, it's a fun time of year in the COD community. Before we get into the dry spell, Rostermania is always fun. So hopefully teams keep dragging out Rostermania so we have more content to talk about before we go into the ultimate Sahara Desert dry part of the off season. But that's going to do it for this one. If you guys enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. On the road to 1,100 subs now. You guys are crushing it with the support. We can't thank you enough. If you're on the audio platforms, drop that follow, drop that 5-star review. We appreciate you listening and tuning in there as well. Looking forward to what you guys think of these rosters. Tell us what you think their floor, their ceiling is, what you think about these rosters as a whole. We like hearing your guys' thoughts because obviously everybody has a different opinion on them. Maybe you think this Faze roster, OpTic roster are going to suck. I'd love to hear why because I disagree with you. Or maybe you think the Toronto roster is going to suck. I'd love to hear why because I also disagree with you. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. We appreciate you guys watching. Thank you guys so much. And we will see you next week with another episode.